Welcome to Nugget 143 with Steve Groman, and today we have a special guest. His name is Nathan, and he lives in Lovington, New Mexico. And Nathan is going to give us some insight into the oil industry. He has worked as a pipeliner and as a safety coordinator.
Brother Groman, it's a pleasure being here with you guys.
Well, good. We appreciate it. Tell us all about it.
I did a lot of work in the Lee County is one of the biggest producers in the Permian Basin. So from start to finish, I got to oversee lots of projects. We've done 30-mile jobs, 20-inch pipe. It's really, really fun to watch from beginning to end, like I say.
I'll bet.
It's pretty crazy because we start off following stakes. You walk through fields, follow stakes, and then you go cutting right away, and then it just takes off from there. It's pretty interesting.
Who put the stakes out?
Land surveyors would come in and set stakes. Yes.
And what's a typical project? Is it days, weeks, months?
Typically, like on a 30-mile project, we would get it done sometimes as quick as in 2 months, depending on how many welders that we had. Our company would go in and charge, say, $37 a foot and then $2,000 for every cross line that we cross and go under. And they would start taking it out as soon as the project was completed, to my understanding.
Do you ever run across any really weird stuff out there, unusual things?
Yeah, absolutely. One time we were digging a bell hole. We barricaded the bell hole up one day and then come back the next day. It had rained that night. And when we come back, there was some old bones, human bones. A bell hole is just a hole big enough to where we can get down there and work and have plenty of space. We call it shelving to where it can't collapse in on us. Them bones were over 100 years old is what they had told us. The sheriff's department went out there. We thought it was a new dead body that we had discovered, but some old guy there.
Wow.
That's cool.
That doesn't happen to just everybody at work,
No,
does it?
it doesn't.
So you said that 30 miles, is that where are you going from? You're going from a specific well or a group of wells to a larger pipeline, or what are you doing?
Sometimes it's just that, as you explained there. More than we put in new lines. The drilling rig will come in first, drill, and they have a spot where they're going to pull oil from. And sometimes we just run it from what we would call EOA and end of line. We'd set up launchers at one end, receivers at the other end. It would just basically go to move the production from where they were drilling the new wells from.
And is the technology so that now that there's oil there?
Well, yeah, what they do is they do these, it's like an X-ray underground to where they string out these cords across the land and then they send vibrations down and it tells them where there's pockets of oil. So they go in right behind after doing that and they drill and then we come in and transport the oil for them basically underground.
That's interesting.
The pipelines that you do, were they all crude oil? Okay,
We have
so it's
crude
mainly
oil.
crude oil, and do you have gas lines here?
Yes, we have some gas lines. We also have H2S lines, pure H2S. That's pretty cool running an H2S line. We did it in poly, 24-inch poly, and it's double encased. There was 2 pieces of pipe inside of it versus just being one pipe.
And what's the reason for that? For the pressure or protection? Or?
No, so it doesn't escape. Like if that amount of H2S escapes, it would wipe out of town pretty quick.
Okay, H2S. So
H2S is hydrogen. It's a hydrogen sulfide. It's a poison gas.
So there's 3 different types of wells, and I just want to explain. When we say gas well, we mean a gaseous substance, not like the gas you put in your car.
Not natural gas that
liquid.
runs your stove.
It's a natural gas. Mm-hmm. And does it need to be refined?
Yes, it all has to be refined.
So everything's going to be refined.
Yes.
It comes out of the ground.
Yes.
What has been the effect of Administration A versus Administration B versus Administration C? Does that affect you?
Yes, it affects us a lot. The new administration that we're under now, it completely shut down everything. They put bans on fracking, and if they're not fracking, then we're not producing anything. That leaves us with no work unless we're replacing old gas lines that have been leaking, or it just puts a big hurt.
No new work
in this area. No new work, none at all.
And that's not always been that way. There has been good work.
Yes. When the president that just left, we had tons of work, and it was good. It was good.
It's amazing because out west, whether it's here or in West Texas or wherever, we've seen just incredible growth in any given community. Hotels and RV parks that aren't really necessarily parks, they're just a place to park the RV. It looks like where a whole bunch of people temporarily have come in. So I guess those people, they lose jobs too.
Yes. Restaurants close down because when the oil field boom is going, little restaurants will spring up everywhere. burrito trucks would pop up everywhere, and just
food.
It's not only food. I love.
Gotta have.
It's not only the oil field who is suffering from it.
Right.
It's also the food trucks and just everything.
I guess so. Grocery stores and
motels,
Right.
everything.
Right.
It's actually caused a lot of damage.
Trickle-down economics works, whether you believe that or not, but it certainly does, doesn't it?
It
Nathan?
certainly does. Even barbers.
Sure.
They're not making as much money as they used to. A bunch of oil field workers would come down, stay in town, and spend some money here, and it's not the same anymore. It really isn't.
So what do you think or do you have a thought on it, the future of the little guy or the middle guy? I would assume they get basically forced out of business for good. They can't just temporarily shut down for X numbers of months.
Yeah.
I would think they just lose out and be gone.
Yeah.
Right? Is that?
Absolutely. That's kind of a company that I was working for. We were an LLC, a limited liability company. We had maybe roughly about 500 people working for us during this whole shutdown thing.
You're referring to the COVID?
The COVID and what is going on now, the fracking ban. The COVID really didn't affect us much.
I wouldn't think so, except for maybe how you had to stand in line at the food truck.
Yeah, just so that didn't really affect us. What I'm really referring to is the shutdown, the ban of the fracking and stuff like that.
Since January 20th.
Since January 20th. The only thing that has kept the small companies above water is working on private-owned lands, not BLM land, and that's out towards Texas.
There's so much BLM land.
New Mexico has a lot of BLM land.
And that's what's been shut down, is
Yes.
no drilling on
BLM
on
land.
BLM, the government
Yes.
land. And BLM, for our listeners, stands for Bureau of Land Management, and they own massive amounts of land in the West. It's all public land, and anyone can travel on it, and we have done that.
We've done a lot of that. We've done a lot of it.
And see, that brings me back to the point that I made in the beginning. Lee County is the biggest oil producer in Permian Basin. So, West Texas, like Odessa, they do produce oil, and it is private land, but nothing like it is here in Lee County.
Many years ago, a pastor in Carlsbad, he worked for a company, and he was their pilot, and he flew us all around here. Until you see that,
phenomenal aerial views.
You cannot get
right.
an appreciation for how many wells there truly are out there.
Right.
Yes, Loco Hills and all that going up towards Artesia. There's pump jacks everywhere.
It is amazing.
Yes, it is. When I first started doing pipeline, before I became a safety coordinator, me and my brother laid over 1 million feet of that 3-inch pipe. We call it flow lines, and it runs from pump jack to pump jack, whether it's transferring just water or the crude oil to dump it into another well, or even saltwater disposals, like a saltwater well. It injects just salt water in there to bring the oil up. Pretty interesting.
Yeah,
the
technology is amazing.
It
pushes it up.
It pushes it up.
It seeks the lower, the oil seeks the higher, and up it comes.
It's pretty interesting.
Cool.
There's a lot to it. People don't see it that way, but there's a lot to what we did. And we didn't just tear up the land. When we would go push right away, we'd clear just the topsoil. When we'd clear the topsoil, we would go and cut ditch after that, and make the ditch wide enough to fit the pipe in. And then after all said and done, put the pipe together. We would put anodes in there. Anodes keeps the pipe from corroding so it won't leak and it doesn't pollute the ground, the water below it, the water table below it. We didn't just tear up the land. What we did after we'd backfilled and everything, we'd go back and seed it and plant seed, and it would be back to normal.
Okay, I'm not going to teach you here too much, but seeding what? Because everywhere we look here, it's just desert and tumbleweeds. What are you seeding, Nathan?
That exactly.
Tumbleweeds and
and
sage and the things that grow here, right?
And things like that. Yes,
it is very desolate out here. If you have never been out in West Texas and southeast New Mexico, you can look forever and see close to nothing.
Close to nothing.
Except for a lot of pump jacks.
Lots of pump jacks. And that's what the BLM requires us to plant, is the actual sage, the wild. And we'd drive up to Clovis and get big bags of seed, of just wild seed. Mm-hmm. And I used to always tease my dad, because my dad's got really nice grass. And I would always tell him I'm about to go dump a bag of that in his yard, because he was always our spread boss. He was the foreman.
That's cute.
And but That's what it is. It's exactly that: tumbleweed, sage, mesquite.
Yeah, that's good. I guess a lot of industry, whether it's woodcutters up in the Northeast or Northwest, or cutting timber for lumber or wherever it is, people do that work on the land, that work the land, they do respect the land, we'll say. I don't mean to sound land worshiper type. I don't mean it that way. They take care of it, which is what we were given a command by God, to have dominion over everything, not to be brutish, but to tend, to care for. And it is a common thing that they don't just tear up the land, but oftentimes respectable companies will go back and reseed it, develop it again, so to speak.
Well, Nathan, we do want to talk about your safety coordinator job. Can we hold you over to another nugget and we can talk a little bit about that part of your job? All right. Well, thank you.